So when you're talking about ordering costs, this is us again ordering from Luke, the big business, right? We're the middle guy kind of. So what do we have to take into consideration when we're ordering from Luke?
Transportation.
Okay.
Those products. Other fees.
What are my other fees?
Taxes. Yeah.
Okay, maybe some kind of taxes. What else?
Storage.
Labor.
Okay, storage cost. What do you mean by labor? Okay, who are my workers for my warehouse? Okay, could be a forklift driver.
I don't know, that forklift driver that dropped off those mats should be paid.
Yeah, he was bad.
Overhead.
So, they go into, actually creating a purchase order. Does everybody understand what a purchase order is?
Yes.
So this is just me filling out a slip of paper that says what I'm gonna get and blah, 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 right? So, when you do this, you gotta have people that do that, right? So there's your, somebody said pay the workers. And then you gotta think about your everyday costs. So even though that you might not use your entire box of envelopes, you gotta take into consideration what one little envelope would cost you. Okay, so your everyday office cost would be what? What do you need? What is,
Expense. Electric.
okay, that's an overhead cost though.
Oh.
Paper, somebody said.
State.
Printers, staples, printer ink, what? Desk chairs, okay? Telephones, computers, okay? Those are all office things. Faxes, even though the faxes are kind of out the door anymore. Computers, and then your overhead costs are basically what are my costs to just open the doors? What would we have to have? Now bring back your taxes, your electricity. What else do I need?
Propane.
Okay, some kind of heat,
AC.
AC. Probably not. Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese?
What else?
The cost of workers?
Okay, my workers. Janitors, okay, those are still my workers. Insurance, depreciation, right? I'm gonna have depreciation on my equipment. I'm gonna have depreciation on my building, if I own my building. I'm gonna pay my taxes. I'm gonna pay insurance, so in case we get broke into. So those are all overhead costs, and then they're gonna be divvied up between all the pieces of our company. Well, this warehouse part is probably a big part of our company. Especially if we're, into that kind of stuff. So you gotta figure out handling stock. If I'm waiting for the things to come from Luke, what do I have to have there at our business? We'd have to have people waiting for that, right? We'd have to have our own forklift driver so we don't have to depend on them. We'd have to have our own forklift, okay? We have to have somebody take that paperwork and check it out, right? So if Trey gets in charge, we'd hand him the invoice, he would look it over. He sees that we thought we ordered 200 of them. They only delivered 150. What's the deal, right? Was it our fault? Was it their fault? Did they just forget to put another pallet of something on the truck before they took off that day? Blah, 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 right? So you gotta have somebody there to do that. You have to have somebody there to then put it away with that forklift. So those are all just basic costs, right? When you're doing this now, you're gonna try to figure out the cost per purchase order, not what you actually purchase. So I know that's kind of confusing right there, but you're not doing it per purchase order, you're just doing it for what you're getting. The whole process costs you something. And we'll show you that in a couple of examples. From there then, they talk about carrying costs. So this means once we get it there, what's it cost us to do? Right? What does it cost us to store it in that warehouse? Well, again, it's probably some kind of electricity, whether it is to keep it cool or even to keep it warm, or just basic electricity. and space, right? We still have to pay rent on that building, or we still have to pay some kind of taxes or something if we own that, right? We still want to have insurance. So again, if somebody steals or comes in and steals it. Other carrying costs would be, let's see, what else we got here? Oh, I guess we kind of hit all of it. Okay? So when you do this now, remember, you want to figure this out for carrying cost, how much it is to hold 1 unit of whatever you're talking about for an entire year. Okay, now you probably, or hopefully, maybe not, I guess, it might get into your actual building and out of your building faster than that, but you got to just anticipate that it could take up to a year.
So, like in Wells, would, like keeping the freezer cold, would that be like a carrying cost, or that'd be the overhead?
Well, it's kind of both, right? I got to have electricity, but an overhead cost is mainly just the electricity to open the doors and have the doors be open. I would say that specifically would be your carrying cost, because you need to store that ice cream, right? So basically that's what it is. How do we get it there and how do we keep it there? That's what you're going to concentrate on. Now, these examples, you really got to pay attention kind of today. If you want to turn that fan on, you can, if you're hot. So turn to page 500. We'll go over a couple examples. These examples, like I said, you might want to pay attention to these ones. And letter A. A retail chain of drugstores has 2 purchasing agents and 1 assistant who work full-time on stock orders. So there you go. They have 3 full-time people that work just on their ordering. Their annual wages are $128,100. Okay? These employees process 15,000 orders a year. So basically, if you wanted to think about that, they're doing, you could figure out how much they're getting paid per order if you wanted to. But there's more to it. From there it says, of the total warehouse cost of $250,000 a year, 60% of it is charged to ordering. Does that make sense? So they're saying, I have my warehouse. In my warehouse, we'd have different divisions in my warehouse. And the division we're talking about today is ordering. So how much is ordering responsible for the warehouse cost? Well, 60%. So if we had $250,000 for the entire thing, and we're 60%, we're going to take 250,000 times 0.6. How much?
150,000. Sorry, 150,000.
Wow.
I don't know why it said that.
That is weird. Okay. Next, keep reading. The total office costs were $54,000 a year, 35% of which is allocated to ordering. So, evidently, those 3 people don't take up a lot of office space, right? They might have 1 giant room and have a couple cubicles, but they're not really getting office space per se. So we're going to say 54,000 times 0.35, right?
189,000. Oh, just kidding, 18,900.
Thank you. Okay, so what else do we need? It says, what is the average cost of each stock order? So what else do I have to add into these 2 things?
128,000.
How much we pay our people, right?
Yeah.
So if we add all 3 of those together, we get how much? 297,000? Okay? And then what's the question asked? The question asks, what is the average cost of each stock order? How many orders did we have? 15,000. So we're going to take our grand total and divide it by 15,000. So 1 order costs us how much? Roughly $19.80. So is that good? Yeah, probably, right? It doesn't really say what we're oh, it's a drugstore, right? They would actually calculate that. So for budgets and all that kind of thing, they would do that to allocate the money to specific ways.
Would that be like somebody's job?
That would be somebody else's job.
That's just one person's
Yep.
job, is to figure all that out.
Yep. So then they would then see what they would want to have their prices for their drugs, in this case, or whatever they're selling. And they would want to have their prices be higher than this in order to pay for all that. Right? So at least we would have $20, but I would guess they were gonna make more than 20 cents. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, there's a person that would just sit there and do that all day long. Okay? Be a little bit different, kind of the same though. Exasol Company estimates the basic cost of processing any purchase order to be $12 per order. Each year though, 125 special orders must be handled at these extra costs. 5.5 hours of staff time per order to write specifications at $43 an hour. So again, notice what happens when we start being specific or getting specialized, right? The amount of those kind of people that we might have to bring in, or if we're talking about like accountants and lawyers and that kind of thing, those people are gonna get paid a little bit more. Then it says 2.5 hours per order at $32 an hour for staff to review the bids received. So think about that. If you're in a company, a construction company or something, and you're taking bids or giving out bids, or you're taking bids for your company from other construction companies, you're paying somebody $32 an hour to say, is Derek's company better than Landon's company? Not a bad gig, right? Okay. So what are the total average costs of handling these purchase orders? How do I find my grand total?
5.5 times 43.
5.5 times 43?
Times
Well,
125.
Times what?
Do you add the other part first and then do the-
Yep. That's what I would do, but you can do it either way. What else?
125 times 32 times
2.5
2.5.
times 32. So if you didn't hear what Olivia said, can I just do the 125 to the answer of those two combined? Yeah, or you can do it as Donald said it out loud, okay? I gotta do it to 125 either way. What else? Anything else?
And then $12.
125 times 12.
And then $12, right? What is the 12 times 125?
These those are
Cost per order.
It's cost per order, right? So is that does that get what the 125 though in this case?
No, those are just basic orders. These are special orders.
Okay. I would say you need to include the 12. The basic cost of processing any purchase order is to be each year 125 special orders must be handled at these extra costs. So see how it says extra costs? So you still need to include the $12. Because the $12 is a part of the 125 and then it costs that extra stuff. So this one, we would also have 12 times 125. So this is what Olivia was asking. If I did this times this and this times this, and then added those three numbers with or those two numbers with the 12, and then multiplied by 125, you can do it that way too. It doesn't really matter. You gotta just make sure that you multiply each section by 125. Okay, so my grand total is
$41,062.
41,000. What'd you say? 62.50. Okay.
Wait, where do you get the 12?
The 12 was the cost of every single order, no matter what. So these are extra costs, so I still have to calculate the $12 per those extra 125. So it's just like, I have a regular order, and then I have an extra order, but it still has to be charged at $12, and then on top of that, I have to do the other two things.
And where do you find it? Oh, I didn't see it.
Second.
Yep.
All right.
Okay? And so then what do I do with this number, 41,062? Divided by 125? And we get what?
328.
How much?
$328.50.
$328.50. So why is this one way more per product? Well, maybe it's just a bigger product. You know what I'm saying? These were drugs, right? Pills, maybe. This is, I don't know, boat.
There's been a reason to even tax it by the 125, if you just divide it. If you just did the 5.5 times 43 plus 2.5 times 32 plus
Total
4.
cost versus average cost.
Yeah, if you just wanted the total cost. Yeah, that'd be the only reason why. So you would then have to report that, to that person for that. I see what you're saying. Depending on what the question actually asks, you can bypass that. All right, go over to C. This one's a little confusing. To me, anyway. Food wholesaler's cost for Happy House frozen vegetables is $1.05 per bag for 600,000 bags handled each year. Okay, so how much, or if we keep going, the wholesaler pays 8% interest on 1/2 of the frozen vegetable inventory value for a year. Okay? Let's talk about that right there. How do I figure that out?
1.05 times 600,000.
Okay, so I have to first find my grand total, right? So I gotta find all of my products, and we're going to charge $1.05. I believe this was 630,000. Yeah? From there then, it says that we pay 8% interest, but only on what? On half. So what do I do to this number? Divided by 2 or times 0.5, so we get what? 325,000?
315,000.
315? Oh yeah, that was 50. Okay. And what do I do to this? Then I'm going to multiply this by 0.08. So again, this is just my amount of what? Interest, right? How much interest do I pay? $25,200. So think about that right there. They paid $25,000 of interest by just holding that product for a year. Right? We would like to have that kind of money, right? All right, keep going. Then it says each year 0.25% of the bags tear and must be thrown out. So what does that mean to us? We lost 0.25%, right? But 0.25% of what number? This number right here, right? Because that's how much all of my product is worth right now. So I'm going to take 630,000 times, remember now, it's 0.25%, so when I punch this into my calculator, I still got to move it 2 places to the left. So it turns into 0.0025. It's a really small percent. So I think this was 1575, if I remember right. Okay. So then, if we keep on going, the cost of freezers and electricity to run the freezers is $90,000 a year. Does that seem absurd? So if you think about $90,000 a year for peas, what do you think it costs Wells to do for their ice cream? Probably a lot, right? Probably a lot. Okay? So it says, what is the carrying cost for 1 bag of frozen vegetables to the nearest cent? So what do we have to add up?
1575.
So I'm going to take this plus 1575. What else?
630,000.
I got to have my grand total, okay? And then what do we do?
You added 90,000.
My 90,000 goes to what? This one right here. Right? Forgot about the 90,000. Forgot about my freezers. How much is this? So here's the question. We're talking about expenses. Is this an expense? No. Right? This is an expense. This is how much our product is worth. So this is an expense. Don't put this into your calculation down here. So if we add these 3 numbers up,
116,707.
that's what I get to. You got 116? Oh yeah, right. I can't add today. You must be using Donald's calculator. Alright, so, here's the question. How much for a carrying cost of, what is the carrying cost for each $1 of annual, or no, that was the next one, sorry. What is the carrying cost for one bag of frozen vegetables? So what do I do with this number? Divide it by $600,000, or 600,000, because that's how many peas I had, or whatever it was, right? Just 600. This isn't the amount of money it was worth. This is how much product I have, right? So that's where you got to kind of slow down and understand what the difference of those two numbers were. Okay? So this is approximately how much? 19 cents. So, to hold those, I don't know if they really said what kind of frozen vegetable it was. To hold the frozen vegetable for 1 year per package is 19 cents per package. So again, you think about the ice cream. It'd be a pretty good chunk of change, right? Okay. D, I think, was basically the same as C though, but I did want to show you those.
So do you think Tyson paid that much interest, or paid more than that on, like, the amount of like, meat they have in their freezers
I would guess.
for like over a period of time?
Mm-hmm. And then you think about why they struggled during the pandemic when they had to shut down all those slaughterhouses and stuff.
Yeah.
Think about just that, even what was it, a couple days of production just about killed them. A buddy of mine runs the trucking part of Tyson out of North Sioux, and he said it was phenomenal. And he could tell by the virus which like slaughterhouse was going to get closed down next, and it was about by the day that he told me, and it was just.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were probably lucky to stay afloat. You know, you think of a company that size, but how much they depend on just one little slaughterhouse. Okay. All right, so those make sense. I know there's a little kind of different wording in some of those, so I did want to make sure we emphasize those. So as Tiff saw up here, we do have a quiz tomorrow. So it should just be over the last two sections.
Just the last two?
Is it in two? Or is it the last three?
I think it's three.
Is it three? I'll check here.